Hello everyone. So welcome to the next session in our modern Indian history course, and today is the 11th session we are discussing. So it is the theme 2, that is administrative and the socio-economic policies, and today we will be discussing the times of the Lord Wellesley, that is the Richard Wellesley. He has a brother whose name is Arthur Wellesley, so keep that in mind. So, before starting the session, let us do some questions. So a previous year question first of all, that in by the regulation in 1793, the district collectors were deprived of their judicial power and made a collecting agent only. What was the reason behind such regulation? So it was the time of the Lord Cornwallis, right? So pause the video and try to answer this question. That what is the cause behind it? Read all the answer, read all the options carefully, and then we'll answer it. Okay. So the first one is that the district collector's efficiency of the revenue collection would increase without the burden of the work. Yeah, it's a logical thing to think of. Okay, then let us think about the second point. Lord Cornwallis think that judicial power should compulsorily be in the hands of the European, while Indians can be given the job of the revenue collection in the district. No, this was not the case. This was not the case. Collectors were also the European in nature. So second option is wrong. If we talk about the third option, Lord Cornwallis was alarmed at the extent of the power concentrated in the district collector and felt that such absolute power was undesirable in one person. And we know that this is the right option. Why? And then let's see the last. Judicial work demanded deep knowledge of the India and a good training in the law. Court felt that district collector should only be a revenue collector. No, it's not like that. In fact, he has appointed the district judge also as a European who will help with the other. He'll be assisted by the Indians. So in that regard, if you see, the third option is the right one. The first option is also can be one of the considerations, but the exact point was the third one. It was based upon the idea of the separation of power, which the Cornwallis Code also emphasized on, right? Cornwallis Code emphasized on the idea of the separation of power given by the Montesquieu. So this is the right answer. That he felt that power should not. We have discussed that quote. That power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. There is important thing in your essays also. There you can expect few essays on the power. For example, one essay has already come in 2016, I think 2016 or 2015, that with great power comes great responsibilities, and you can expect more questions with respect to the power, the idea of the power, the idea of responsibility, the idea of accountability. So be prepared with a few quotes on the power. Next is the who among the following Governor General created a covenant civil services of India, which later came to be known as the Indian Civil Services. Who was the one who created these covenant civil services, which came to be known as the Indian Civil Services? We have read that it was the Mr. Wellesley who started this civil services, covenant civil services, and we will see the evolution of the civil services when after your political history is over. We'll look at these developments. So how these civil services in India has developed, right? Then next question is, which of the following can be observed in the judicial reforms by the Lord Cornwallis? The first, the merger of the post of the civil judge and the collector, the separate courts for the deals with the criminal case, abolition of the provincial court of appeal. Pause the video and try the answer. What could be the correct answer? Could be observed in the judicial reform by the Lord Cornwallis. Merger of the post of civil judge and collector, separate courts were set up to deal with the criminal cases, abolition of the provincial courts of appeal. Now we know that it was the Cornwallis who believed in the idea of separation of power. So first point will obviously will be wrong. Civil judge was different, collector was different. So when the first option becomes wrong, only this option becomes right and every option becomes wrong. The abolition of the Court of Appeal was done by the William Bentinck, that we'll look at later on. Okay. That was William Bentinck. So these things we have already read. What are the reforms taken up by the Lord Cornwallis? And your second option is right only. Chalo. Third question is, consider the following statement with reference to the Warren Hastings, the Governor General in India. He set up the Calcutta Madrasa to enable the regular supply of the qualified Indians to help the administration of the law in the British court. He experimented with the land revenue by auctioning the right to collect revenue to the highest bidder. He entered into the peace agreement with Tipu Sultan by signing the Treaty of Seringapatnam. Good question. You can expect such questions in your UPSC. based upon in personality. So pause the video and try to answer the question. Now, obviously, we have read that yes, Lord Cornwallis kept the idea of this Calcutta Madrasa, and the reason behind it was also the same. That, for example, you have seen that he wanted to associate Indians with the Europeans and try to understand the law which they have to apply. So he needed these qualified Indians who are well versed with these laws, and for that purpose, this Calcutta Madrasa was set up. Okay. So both designed to provide the regular supply of the qualified Indians to help the administration of the law in the court of the company. Similar arguments you will see when you'll see the education, modern education introduced into India. It was not for the benefit for the Indians, rather it was a benefit for the British Empire, so that they can have these babus who are English in their taste, English in their thinking, English in their habit, but they are Indians in their blood. So we will see when we look at the modern education what the Britishers have given to India and what were the consequences of it, what were the reasons of it, and the chronologies of it. So your statement one is right. Yes, he set up a Calcutta Madrasa to enable the regular supply of the qualified Indians. He experimented. Yes, we have discussed that the land revenue system given by the Mughals have broken down. It was a period of chaos, and Warren Hastings' system was based upon the idea of experimentation and the trial and error. Okay, this is we have discussed. He entered into the peace agreement. No, he did not enter into the peace agreement with the Treaty of Seringatpatnam. Rather, he entered into the peace agreement with the Treaty of, which is the Treaty of Mangalore. And Treaty of Seringatpatnam was by the Lord Cornwallis. Okay. Next question is, consider the following statement regarding the Anglo-Maratha Wars. These questions will help you to revise your previous content as well. So in my opinion, if you see such questions, go back to the previous slide, pause the video, go back to the previous slide, previous notes, and revise it and try to answer these questions, so that you always remain in touch with your whatever we have read previously. And that's why I'm keeping a lot of questions from previous themes as well, so that you always remain in touch with the previous classes. Very, very important for you to maintain that continuum. Consider the following statements regarding the Anglo-Maratha Wars. So first is, the first Anglo-Maratha War happened during the reign of the Lord Warren Hastings. Second, Pindaris were one of the main factors behind the second Anglo-Maratha War. Peshwa was dethroned and pensioned after the third Anglo-Maratha War. Pause the video again and try to answer this question. Everything we have discussed here. So if you remember that, yes, after the third Anglo-Maratha War, what happened? Yes, in 1818, Lord Hastings has defeated the Marathas and the Peshwas were dethroned. Yes, third statement is right. Third statement is right. That means first, this statement is wrong. First option. Okay, fine. Then what about these three? Then Pindaris were the factor behind the second Anglo-Maratha War? No. The Pindari story we'll discuss the Pindari story as well. Pindari story started with it's a long story, Pindari story. So basically they were the Marathas used to occupy them in their forces. And ultimately when the Britishers wanted to subjugate these Pindaris because they did not like them, because these Pindaris used to harass a lot of people on their way. For example, someone is traveling from here to here for trade purposes. They will come in between and they will kill them and they'll loot them. So the British wanted to eradicate these Pindaris, as we will discuss in the next class itself when we'll talk about the Lord Hastings. So Pindaris were there, and the Pindaris did not. Pindaris were the Minak for the Britishers, and that was one of the context of your third Anglo-Maratha War that finished with 1818. So second statement becomes wrong. Second statement becomes wrong. So this statement's wrong. This statement wrong. And your answer gets 1 and 3. The first Anglo-Maratha War, yes, it did happen during the time of your Warren Hastings. Treaty of Salbai was being signed, and then your second Anglo-Maratha War happened in the times of your Lord Wellesley. So that treaty paved the way for 20 years of peace between British and the Marathas. Then you have the second Anglo-Maratha War happening in the time of the Lord Wellesley, and the third Anglo-Maratha War happening. Today we will look at it. Lord Wellesley's time, second Anglo-Maratha War happened, and the third Anglo-Maratha War happened in the times of the Lord Hastings. Okay. So statement 1 is right, statement 2 is wrong, statement 3 is right. Answer is 1 and 3. Now let's start our lecture today. We start with the Richard Wellesley. What is the context of the Richard Wellesley? The context of the Richard Wellesley is that yes, Warren Hastings was there from 1773 to 1785. Then you have the Lord Cornwallis. You need to remember these chronologically बिल्कुल अच्छे से. 1985, 86 to 1793. Then you have the Mr. John Shore, whose period was very uneventful. But in his period, what happened? He followed the policy of non-intervention that led to the loss of prestige for a lot of loss of prestige for the Britishers. Then Wellesley 1798 to 1805. Now the times of the Lord John Shore, he followed, as we've discussed, the policy of the non-intervention in the princely states. Now the princely states, a lot of places there is anarchy, first of all, lack of trust for the Britishers, and the British expansion has also not taken place in this time. Because when you have the policy of non-intervention, obviously you are focusing on yourself. When you're focusing on yourself, obviously you are not taking the step of the expansion. Second was the issue of the Zaman Shah. Zaman Shah was the ruler of this Durrani empire, we'll see. So it was a threat that he will come and invade the North India. So that was the threat which everyone was feeling, whether it was the Nawab of Awadh or whether it was the Richard Wellesley or the Britishers company, that he can again come and do this. On the pretext of Nadir Shah 1739 and the Ahmad Shah Abdali, what Ahmad Shah Abdali has done in 1761. So this could happen again. So this was a threat. Another threat was developing in the times of the French, because the Napoleon threat is still there. Remember the time. This is the time of the Napoleon threat. Remember 1798 to 1805. It was the time when the Napoleon was at peak. अपनी peak पर था Napoleon. And this was the time when the threat was there. So these were the times of the Richard Wellesley. Within India, if you look at it, what happened? Yes, the Tipu Sultan has lost, but he started making some connections with the French. This Napoleon, he started making connection with the French. And he also regained some of the stuff because of the policy of the non-intervention, helped the Tipu Sultan. He also had the tendency, no, I have to take the revenge from the Britishers because my sons, they have taken my territories, they have taken. So still, Tipu Sultan was one of the powers which need to be subdued. Along with that, within the 20 years which has happened, 20 years of the treaty with the Marathas. Now Marathas have also become a very important power there. Irrespective of the infighting among the Marathas, but there was a very important, Maratha has become a very important power in the north, which needed to be subdued for the British Empire to expand. So these were the context in which the Richard Wellesley arrives. We will have all the notes of it. I'm just trying to explain you here. So Richard Wellesley, what we have to discuss first, the background of it, in which comes, then the very important tool, in fact, for which the Richard Wellesley is known for, that is the final institutionalization of the policy of the subsidiary alliance. Then the next one is the enforcement of the subsidiary alliance into the states. Then the Anglo-Mysore War that we have discussed, the fourth Anglo-Mysore War. Then second Anglo-Maratha War, the Treaty of the Bassein, then the second war. And then finally, we'll look at what Richard Wellesley was able to achieve. He was the one who established the British Empire in India. It is said, and you have to remember these lines, that British Empire of India. So he was the one who is said to achieve this. So British Empire in India to British Empire of India. Secondly, he was the one who convert this EIC from a trading company to a imperial power because of this factor only. So these are the two lines that you need to remember with respect to Richard Wellesley or Lord Wellesley when it comes to your mains examination. Now, this was the times that we have discussed, the context in which the Richard Wellesley is arriving. Zaman Shah Durrani, for example, you can see his reign 1730, 1719 to 1801. So you can see at the times it was thought that you can see his empire also. He was a very ambitious ruler, and it was thought that he can come and he can attack India. So it was thought of that we need to ward off this threat and we need to take care of him. Or it was at least the pretext which Lord Wellesley has used. For example, we'll discuss, to sign the subsidiary alliance with the Nawab of Awadh. For the Nawab of Awadh, he has used this. Okay, he is coming, so you need our help. So you need to sign the subsidiary alliance with us. Otherwise, your territory will be taken away from you. So the political conditions at the time of the Richard Wellesley in the northwest, you have the dangers of the Zaman Shah. Dangers is looming of the Zaman Shah. In the north central, you have the Maratha who have become a formidable power because of the 20 years of the peace. Right? They have gained a lot of territory at the expense of the Mysore. Mysore have lost a territory, and the Nizams and the Hyderabad Marathas have gone a lot of territory. Nizam has also become very prominent because of the territories that they have got, and they have started employing the Frenchmen here. There is a political unrest in a few of the princely states, for example, Karnataka, for example, Tanjore, that Richard Wellesley will go and sign the subsidiary alliance with later on. Tipu Sultan is still an uncompromising enemy for the Richard Wellesley, and the policy of the neutrality, that is being policy of non-intervention by the John Shore, has resulted into the political unrest and the decline of the prestige of the Britishers. Prestige decline कर गई है British की. So these are the implications of the. It was the times of the Richard Wellesley, and one important, that is a Napoleon threat. That if Napoleon attacks India, then it will create a lot of challenges for the British Empire in India specifically. Hence, the 2 M of the Wellesley, if they talk about first the preservation of the British prestige, within which all the things of the princely states will come, and the second is the removal of the French danger over India, were the Wellesley's twin aim. You can expect this question quote unquote and comment. You can expect this question as well. Okay, so preservation of the British prestige and the removal of the French danger from the India were the Wellesley's twin aim. Chalo. Then we talk about one of the very formidable instrument employed by the Richard Wellesley, that is the subsidiary alliance. What is this subsidiary alliance? Very basic. There are two parties will be there. One party will be the one will be the Indian ruler, and the second will be the Britishers. So the Britishers, they will sign this treaty. You can imagine it like a treaty. So Britishers will give something to the Indians, some assurance to the Indians, and in return, the Indians have to give something to the British. Now apply your brain and think about what are the things which will be given by the Britishers. Britishers will give Indians what? First of all, they will give only and only what? Assurances. They will give assurances that we will protect you from all type of external and internal threat. External threat means from outside, maybe from outside, let's say like Jaman Shah, or from the other territories. Let's say assuring the Nizam of Hyderabad that we will protect you from Marathas. Let's say internal threat means within the state. Within the state, there can be rebellion against the Nizam. Let's say because the Nizam is not working well, so the people can get up and they can revolt against the Nizam. So we will help you to quash this rebellion as well. So these kind of assurances can be given by the Britishers that we will help you, external and internal security will provide you. But in return, obviously, Britain will want something what? Money. It will establish the individual state as the protected state. And they will be established as the paramount state, paramount power. Okay? So this is the basic idea behind the subsidiary alliance. The small things we will work out later on, but this is the whole idea, that the British will get something in return, obviously money wise, territory wise, they will get something money wise, territory wise. They will say that we will control your defenses, diplomacy, and your external relations. We will control all these things. In the return, you have to provide us the money. And this was the idea behind the subsidiary alliance. So the Indian state became the protected states and the British state became the paramount state. Let us see one by one what is first of all the British are offering them. First, we will safeguard you from external aggression, help ruler maintain the internal peace, and won't interfere into your internal affairs. We will not interfere in your internal affairs. Obviously, they will interfere in their internal affairs, but on the pretext they will say, no, we will not do, but we'll just help you. On the other hand, the Indian state will maintain the contingent of the British troop commanded by the British officers. So they have to maintain these troops in their within their territory British troops, because to achieve these things, they need to have the British troops. Secondly, you have to give us the money. Obviously, after some time, the Nawab will say we don't have money, so they will say this is your territory, give us this much territory. So this much territory will be given to the Britishers. So slowly they are expanding as well. Third, no connection with the other European power. This is a very important one. If you remember, the British used to sign the treaties like it, isn't it? And that was one of the context of your second Anglo-Maratha war also. Bhai, Nana Fadnavis ko the British have said that don't do anything with the French, but he did it. Okay, so that was the no connection with the other European power needs to be there. Then the relations with the other, permission from the British. For example, let's say Nizam wants to conduct one treaty with the Marathas, but Nizam, after he signs the subsidiary alliance, can only conduct any diplomatic thing with relations with other Indian power only and only after the permission from the Britishers. So Britishers will play as role of a mediator. So these are the give and takes of your subsidiary alliance. Okay? The basics of your subsidiary alliance. I'm telling you, whenever you have the question, we'll discuss that later on. Whenever you have a question on subsidiary alliance or Lord Wellesley, try to make this diagram. You'll make it a very small diagram. You can make a very attractive diagram out of it. But these diagrams can help you to fetch more marks in your mains examination. Then if you talk about the stages of the subsidiary alliance, stages ki baat kare. So first stage is, let's say, how it worked out in the real time. At the ground reality, you can say. Firstly, the EIC will lend troops to the friendly Indian state. They will say, okay, we are providing troops. Then they will fight for a common cause. Let's say an internal threat has come or an external threat has come, external aggression or internal threat has come. So both the parties will come together and fight together. And the native state will provide the money for it. Okay? Both will come together and both will fight together. That will happen. Then the EIC will say that only all soldiers of EIC will fight. You have to abandon your native soldiers. These native soldiers are not good. They cannot protect you. You have to provide only EIC soldiers will protect you. This is a very important stage because here you can see all these native soldiers, they will become what? Unemployed. And a lot of them will go on and join the Pindaris. And that is why later on Pindaris become, for example, in the Marathas, when the subsidiary alliance will be signed with the Marathas, these soldiers will be left out. They will join the Pindaris. And later on, these Pindaris will become a headache for the Britishers. And then they will fight another battle with the Marathas and they'll eradicate these Pindaris. And the last stage, they will say, we will defend your Indian allies. You have to station our subsidiary troops. And they will take up the lands for maintenance of the troop. Later on, the more things, it will set up a stage for something big. Subsidiary alliance will set up the stage for, let's say, now your ruler, imagine yourself, you are a ruler. You are just paying the money, but you're not worried about any external threat or not worried about any internal threat. So why you will be concerned with a good governance? Why people do good governance? They do good governance, for example, in the elections, in the democracies. Why people go for good governance? So that we get voted again. We get the power again. But there he has no worried about getting the power, because he is already in the power and he'll be protected by the Britishers every time. And when he'll be protected by the Britishers every time, then there is no point of providing the good governance. So it will lead, the Maharaja will live in the state of luxury, while the Praja will do, the people will be suffering. And this will create a very discomfort, that the distance between the ruler and the ruled. And later on, you can see this maladministration or the misgovernance will provide a pretext to the Britishers. No, you are not doing it well. You can see this much gap is there. It is generated by the Britishers only. But they will later on say, you are doing this misgovernance and we will take over your territory. Nawab, you go to jail or you fled away. Or take some money from us, live in pension. Don't worry. We will take care of your territory. So they will annex these territory and include them into the British Empire. So it is setting in stage for the annexation as well. Now, what are the benefits for the subsidiary alliance for the East India Company? First, it was a master stroke of the imperialism. They realized that it's a master stroke. We can expand our territory. For example, we can expand our military because now the money is being paid by the ruler, the native ruler. Then their position has expanded. They can position their territory, which, for example, if they sign subsidiary alliance with them, their territory, their troop is here. They sign subsidiary alliance here. They have their troop here. They sign subsidiary alliance here. Their troop is here. So now their troop is present all over the India. Now they can control any part of India and defend themselves, defend their factories, defend their commercial interests, defend their land revenue interests, and all these things. It has led to reduction of the wars among the, let's say, princely states, and which increase the stability. And stability is always good for the trade, ease of doing business. Then position the British, and it was a very easy way of expansion. It was a very, very easy way to expand into the other territory. So subsidiary alliance proved to be a master stroke of the imperialism. But however, there were a lot of defects for the subsidiary alliance, especially defects were there for the Indians. These defects were there for the Indians. Let's say, first one, the immediate impact kya tha? Unemployment of the thousands of the soldiers. These freebooting activity of the disbanded soldiers, this felt with the Minak of the Pindari, as we have discussed. Then it led to the demoralization effect on the princes that are there. Demoralizing effect on the princes, because now they have neglected their administrative responsibility. We have discussed it. No good governance, let's say. Or why to provide the good governance when these things are already given to us? They prefer to lead an easygoing and the pleasure-seeking lives. They thought that what is the point of living a life which gives us responsibilities, because we are already protected. And in the course of time, the anarchy and the misrule in the several states has resulted in the annexation by the Britishers. After some time, the Britishers will come and we will annex you. So furthermore, the British collected very heavy subsidies from the protected princes, and this was adversely affected their economy. For example, let's say one princely state is fighting the other princely states. British help this princely state to win, and they will ask a lot of money from this princely state. So obviously, the princely state's economy will be down. So these are the impacts or the defect of the subsidiary alliance that are there. Few subsidiary alliance that we should know, not very important. First one is, you need to know which is the first state which came under the subsidiary alliance. That was the Hyderabad of Nizam of Hyderabad. So the first state under the Wellesley subsidiary alliance, 20 lakh, 4 lakh annually to be paid. The French troops which have been there in the Hyderabad to be disbanded, and the British force will be there. And later on, they signed one more treaty and they have to cede a large territory to the Britishers. In the Awadh also, the threat of the Zaman Shah, as we have discussed, Zaman Shah of Afghanistan. So it was a pretext for the Wellesley to force the Nawab of Awadh to get to subsidiary alliance. The Britishers have told that we will put our territory in Rohilkhand, Doab, and Gorakhpur. We have discussed all these locations. Law and order, the British authorized to frame the rules and the regulation, and high-handedness of Wellesley was criticized here. The similar thing that we have discussed with the Rohilkhand war of the Warren Hastings. This was very much criticized by the others. Okay, so this was the times of the Awadh. Then you have more places. For example, Tanjore. It was a Maratha state of Tanjore. There was a succession dispute. Within the succession dispute, what will be the modus operandi of the Britishers? For example, when someone dies, then two parties are fighting. This party and this party is fighting. The Britishers will say, we will help you, but you have to sign the subsidiary alliance in the return. He will say, yes, I will do. And when he says yes, obviously he will beat him and he will become the next king. And when he becomes the next king, he will sign the subsidiary alliance. So the Tanjore, Karnataka, and the Surat, the similar stories were there. Okay? They were suffering states, and the Wellesley used all the pretexts to form the subsidiary alliance. What you need to remember, first of all, you need to remember first the case of the Hyderabad, then the Awadh case, and then the Maratha case. We will discuss that. We have already discussed that how in the cases of the Marathas and the Mysore, they have signed the subsidiary alliance. Let us see the case of Mysore. So you remember the Fourth Anglo-Mysore War. It was the period of the John Shore, the policy of the non-interference. Now Wellesley has said letter to the Tipu that join the subsidiary alliance and submit yourself. But obviously the Tipu, which has already improved himself, he has sent embassies and he's trying to recover. He said, no. I will rather go for the war, and finally the war has been happened and the Tipu has died. And finally, this whenever this Vodaya dynasty, which was reinstated, this Vodaya dynasty signed a subsidiary alliance with the Britishers. This Vodaya dynasty signed subsidiary alliance with the Britishers that we have already discussed. Okay. So this is the end of Tipu's story, and this happened in the time of the fourth Anglo-Mysore War happened in the time of the Lord Wellesley. Just to recall very quickly, first Anglo-Mysore War happened in the times of the Warren Hastings. Then second Anglo-Mysore War happened in the times of the first Anglo-Mysore War happened in the times of the Robert Clive. Second Anglo-Mysore War happened in the time of the Warren Hastings. Third Anglo-Mysore War happened in the times of the Lord Cornwallis. And the last Anglo-Mysore War happened in the times of the Lord Wellesley. So you can see consecutively after one Governor General the other, except John Shore. One Clive, Hastings, Cornwallis, John Shore, no, then Wellesley. And this is the Anglo-Maratha, Anglo-Mysore War. You can remember like that as well. Then you remember the story of the second Anglo-Maratha War that was leading to Nana Fadnavis was there. He died in 1800, right? He died in 1800. And this Madhav Rao committed the suicide in that. So after that, a lot of challenges were there, a lot of battles were there within the Marathas, right? This Bajirao Peshwa became, and there was a infighting among the Maratha Sardars. Peshwa plus India versus the Holkar, and in which the Bajirao, who fled and finally signed a subsidiary alliance with the Britishers. And this was the master stroke of the subsidiary alliance, or this was the pinnacle of the success of the subsidiary alliance. Why? Because first time a Maratha has come into the subsidiary alliance, and whenever you sign a subsidiary alliance, you are goner. Once you signed a subsidiary alliance, you are become a protected state, and now you cannot do anything. Slowly and slowly, you will get into the pitfall of the British imperialism. We have discussed that Treaty of Bassein. What will happen? No foreigner dispute settlement territory he has to give. Other Marathas did not like it, and they'll say it's humiliating, and we'll go for the war. And then second Anglo-Maratha War happened. Then they have signed. Everyone signed the subsidiary alliance with the Britishers. All these treaties are the treaties of the subsidiary alliance with the Britishers. All happened in the times of the Richard Wellesley. Then significance of the Treaty of Bassein, we have already seen it. Thus, it was known as the crowning achievement of the subsidiary alliance. Okay. So, who lacked political authority, but now the company, it's been given the key, English, the key to the India. Chalo. Then the last thing that we need to remember with respect to Lord Wellesley, it's the Fort William College. So Lord Wellesley set up a Fort William College for training of the new recruits. I think this came in this year's modern history paper. I'll see, and I'll add in the next class. So in 1800, he set up this Fort William College for the new recruits to be trained for the Indian civil services. But later on in 1806, this was disapproved by the Court of Director, and they set up an East India College in the England itself. So the Indian college was disbanded after some time. Later on, we'll see it was reopened again, but it was attempted by the Lord Wellesley, but finally it was shut down by the Court of Director. So this was the end of the Lord Wellesley. Let us see what kind of what estimates we have. Again, this estimate is taken from the Tamil Nadu board. All the relevant facts on the Tamil Nadu board are being taken. In fact, I told you right in the starting, very well coverage of these governor generals are being done in your Tamil Nadu board. If you want to go ahead and read that book, go ahead. But almost everything I've taken from that book, so you can avoid that also. So he was an unscrupulous annexationist and advocate of the forward policy. He was one of the greatest empire builders. He converted the British Empire in India to the British Empire of India. The establishment of the British paramountcy in India was his supreme task. He located the weak spots of the Indian power and applied his political techniques, namely subsidiary alliance, to it. Then, by annexation of Karnataka and Tanjore, he paved the way for the formation of the Madras Presidency. He rightly deserved to be called as the maker of the East-While Madras Presidency. So this is an important thing that you need to remember. So he has taken over the annexation of the Karnataka, Mysore, and these places, Tanjore, and that's why he was said to be the maker of the Madras Presidency. This is a fact that you need to remember with respect to your Lord Wellesley. And the creator of the province of Agra. In this manner, a great part of Indian subcontinent was brought under the company's protection, and he turned an East India Company from a trading corporation into an imperial power. So earlier a company which was only trading, now it has become an imperial power holding a lot of territory, and a lot of territory addition has been done by the Lord Wellesley himself. Okay. At that time also you see the Napoleon threat receded, Tipu Sultan lost, Zaman Shah did not, Zaman Shah also died. We have seen 1801. So all the things worked out in the favor of the Lord Wellesley also, which helped him to basically rule the way he did, right? So I have two questions for you. This is practice question number 5 that is there, and I'm not given a lot of questions. So first question is, though the exclusion of though it has its achievement, the exclusion of the Indians from the system was the key feature of the judicial reforms introduced by the Cornwallis. Comment, analyze. Okay, though it has its achievement, the exclusion of the Indians from the system was a key feature of the judicial reforms introduced by the Cornwallis. Analyze. Next is the Richard Wellesley in his tenure turned the British Empire in India into the British Empire of India. Elucidate. Okay, chalo. Try to write this answer, and after you write this answer, before I will recommend you to please do write this answer, because we have discussed Richard Wellesley. Revise this, then write this answer, not an issue. And after you write this answer, you can check out the solution on this particular video. Go to the Amrita IAS Academy YouTube channel, then go to the playlist. Go in the playlist, go to the Mains Master 1 program. Then within the Mains Master 1 program, go to the Modern History Modern History question 3. I'll give reference to 6 questions. I have solved all the questions. I will give reference here. So, Modern History 3 Mains Master program, this, and watch this video. Here I have explained this particular question, how we can introduce, and then how can you build up your body of the answer, and how can you conclude. But in my opinion, first you should try this answer, then you can watch this particular session. I have also put the discussion link here. If within the PDF, you can look at this link from here itself. Okay. So because these governor generals are very important, Prince question, so we are doing, है ना? The main question you can follow it up from there. So with this, we'll wrap up the session, and that will be end of the today's session. The length of the session are relatively small, but slowly, for example, next session length will be big, because in that time we'll be discussing both the governor generals, that is Hastings and William Bentinck, both. So see you all in the next session. Bye bye for now. Thank you.